Hey, how's it going, fans? Welcome to mindforcombat. If you're new to the channel, my name's Rohan, and this is my platform where I do fight sports related content. If you're new here, why don't you help me grow my platform? All you have to do is subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like it, maybe hit that bell icon to get notified every time I upload a video. With that said, in this video, I'll be taking a look at who I think are the best pure boxers in the world of mixed martial arts. Now, before we get into the video, I'm going to define what I mean by that. It's not who has the best boxing for MMA. It's who I think will do the best if they transition to the sport of boxing based on the evidence we have and what we've seen of their game in mixed martial arts. Now, that's very, very interesting. It's a really good concept, and it's actually an idea I got from my good friend and subscriber, Bradford Lad. So thank you for the idea. I've decided to do it in covering the whole of mixed martial arts, and I may do a more detailed follow-up video where I take a look more at, at the analytical side of the boxing, the skill set, the fundamentals, how they use the fundamentals in MMA and what it is that makes me believe it. But I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown of maybe my top 5 guys who I think would do really, really well in boxing, or the best certainly of all the other mixed martial artists. Now, I haven't taken in consideration in this video their age. I'm taking their skill sets as it stands on this day. I'm not factoring the fact that obviously the older fighters on this list, they will diminish in the game, and if they was to start boxing today, yes, in 2-3 years time, they probably wouldn't have the same skill set they do now, but maybe they can get a good fight or two out. But anyways, this is just about who I think has the best skill set in boxing for boxing today in the world of mixed martial arts. So without further ado, I'm going to get into this. Before I start my top 5, obviously there's special mentions that will always stand out to me, and that's guys like Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt has got brilliant hands, good fundamentals, went 31-1 as an amateur in boxing. But the problem I find with Cody Garbrandt, where he would struggle in boxing, is that he seems to be a bit reckless when he gets clipped, and then that exposes his chin. He's obviously proven to be have a suspect chin in a way, really, and I think that's really impacted him in his career, and that's what put him in those 3 lost string, is that temperament that he has when he gets clipped, wanting to fire back. And I think that wouldn't bode well in the sport of boxing. So while I think fundamentally he's excellent, I don't think that he necessarily has all the tools necessary to be successful. And another guy that I think is really, really good at boxing, that I think could have some success, would be someone like Frankie Edgar. I think Frankie Edgar in his heyday prime would have had a lot of success, especially considering how late he started training boxing. Obviously, he only started training boxing for the sport of MMA, so the fact that he got as good as he did is pretty spectacular. Obviously, some of the retired fighters like Nick Diaz, who I consider a retired fighter, I think he had real good boxing. Nate Diaz, I think that's another honourable mention. I think he can get sloppy at times, and his shots are somewhat predictable at times, so I haven't added him to the list. But those are some great names that I haven't put on the list, and this is my top 5 guys that are competing actively in the sport of boxing, MMA right now. So at number 5, I've got Max Holloway. Max Holloway, I think, has got great footwork, he's got great boxing, he sets up a lot of stuff with his jab, and I think his pressure boxing style really translates to a lot of success for him in the sport of mixed martial arts. And I think when you're looking at his skill set, his movement, his abilities, his conditioning, the way he puts his punches together, it's actually pretty damn impressive. He never finishes a punch on single punches, always combinations. And when he's at his best and he's moving well and he's healthy and he's strong and he's got his confidence, his hands are as dangerous as anyone. Now, I think he won his last fight in mixed martial arts, but that's irrelevant, because what he did display in that fight was a great jab, and I think he's displayed a great jab throughout it. Obviously, a jab is a key fundamental step in professional boxing if you're going to have any level of success. And I think Max Holloway is someone that will do really, really well. He fights at 145. The equivalent of that will be welterweight in boxing, because that's 147, I believe. So I think he could have a lot of success in that class, and I think the way he holds his hands and his defensive skills, his footwork and his combinations, just put him together, make him a good package for the sport of boxing. At number 4, I've got the heavyweight champion of the world, and in my opinion, the greatest UFC heavyweight there ever was. I don't think it's the greatest heavyweight of all time, not just yet. But Stipe Miocic, I think Stipe Miocic is absolutely exceptional with his hands. I think he's got great skills. He's got a great jab. He carries his combinations well. He digs to the body brilliantly, just the way he did with Daniel Cormier. We all saw that, and I think he's a guy that can do a lot of damage on the feet, and he can make a lot of stuff happen in the sport of boxing. Even in MMA, all his combinations start with his hands, finish with his hands. I think he's got great kicking abilities. He just doesn't tend to use them very much. And I think Stipe Miocic could have a lot of success in the game of boxing. I think if you look at the way he puts his combinations together, how he ends with the body shots, Where he lacks in the sport of boxing, I think, are his defensive abilities are a bit suspect to me, and not just to say his chin suspect. I don't think his chin is suspect at all. He fought Francis, who's not on the list, by the way, because I think he's a bit too reckless and like skill set wise, without his power, I don't know how good he is. So I've just based this on skill set. But going back to the topic, I think Stipe Miocic leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to his defensive skills in boxing, and I think he gets hit a lot. He showed good head movement against Francis because he understands the stakes that were on the line in that fight, but I think overall he would struggle in the sport of boxing, particularly when he's put up against those guys with the lightning fast hands and guys who just know how to do it all well and box so technically sound and are just so dangerous that they see tiny openings. Even Dylan White got caught in KO, then I think the same would happen to Stipe, but that's not to say that I don't think he could have success, and I think for mixed martial arts he's got great hands. Stipe is my number 4 guy. At number 3, we've got a guy who's actually boxed a little bit here. One I know is a professional boxer. He's boxed in the backyards. I'm talking to none other than Gamebred himself, Street Jesus. That's Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. I think Masvidal's great. He's got great fast hands, got a great jab, great defensively. He's got great footwork. All round, he's got everything I would expect to be a good high-level boxer. And if he didn't compete in MMA and he continued on boxing, I've no doubt he would have been world caliber as we speak right now. Would he have won a world championship? I don't know. Again, he fights in a really tough weight class, fighting at 170. That's light heavyweight. That's the weight class where, you know, you got the guys like Liam Smith, Joe Calzaghe once fought in that. Andre Ward would have been more in his time, obviously. Sergey Kovalev, when he was younger, was in his time. Bernard Hopkins. These are all tough fights for him. I don't think that he would have ever been able to get good enough to beat them guys, but that's not to say that he wouldn't have had a lot of success in the sport of professional boxing. I think Jorge Masvidal puts it all together. He picks his shot well, he recognizes angles, he knows how to set up his combinations with his jab, and he always keeps his hands nice and high. Defensively is sound. I think Jorge Masvidal carries a lot of power and is explosive as well. He's a complete package when it comes to boxing, so Jorge Masvidal is a really good contender for maybe the best boxer in all of mixed martial arts. But for now, I've got him at number 3 on my list, just below Alexander Gustafsson. Now, Gustafsson is a guy who moves incredibly well. He's got great boxing, great fluid movements, and he mixes in his footwork and his boxing really well together. And that's something that a lot of guys struggle with, you know, finding the footwork and then entry of the punches, mixing it in together. There's that little brief millisecond where you stop your footwork and you plant your feet for your punches, and I think Gus has always done that well. He's had great head movement, he's had great movement in general. His boxing has always been spectacular, and he's kind of displayed it. His fight with John Jones, particularly his first fight back in 2013 where he shined, that was purely based on his you know, movement in his boxing and his abilities to take advantage of angles and mistakes that John Jones had made in his boxing game, you know, defensively, and his movement and head movement in particular was giving John Jones trouble all night. Then you got his fight with Glover Teixeira, where he really showed his boxing abilities and he showed how well he can put it all together. Then you take the fact that Alexander Gustafsson is actually an accomplished amateur boxer. He won the Swedish National Open as a youth, and he won the KB boxing tournaments, I think on 3 different occasions. As an amateur boxer, he's very decorated, very talented, and I think Alexander Gustafsson is a guy who, if he went to heavyweight boxing, especially given how thin heavyweight boxing is, even despite now being the most stacked it's been in a long time, I think Alexander Gustafsson would give a lot of guys problems, and I think that he could have done really, really well, particularly when you consider guys like, no disrespect here, but guys like Manuel Charr currently hold the WBA regular world title. That's a world title. I think Gustafsson could have done really, really well. That brings us to my number 1 guy. My number 1 guy, maybe controversially, I don't think it can be that controversial really, is Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, the Notorious himself, is in my opinion the number 1 best boxer in all of mixed martial arts right now, and I think his game is heavily based around his ability to box. He has great counter punching, he carries big power in his hands, he's got fast fluid combinations, he knows how to put his punches together, he knows how to select his shots, and we have some evidence of his boxing ability, seeing that he fought 10 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. Now, I do believe that Floyd carried him through a lot of that fight, and I do believe that Floyd could have finished that fight sooner. He was just trying to put on a show. Floyd also didn't box like Floyd Mayweather, he just literally walked a man down. So you know, don't look into that too much. I think Floyd could have done a lot different in that fight, even though it was a 40-year-old Floyd. I think Conor still showed us his abilities to, you know, box, evade some of Floyd's shots, and just be able to mix it up with Floyd and land some shots, land some really difficult shots. And I have no doubt he could have some success in the game if he's motivated and in tune, and it's not just about the money for Conor McGregor. I think Conor has shown his abilities to knock people out with one punch, no doubt, but what often gets overlooked is his ability to put combinations together, and his ability to lead behind his jab, and his lead uppercut is a thing of beauty. Back in the days when he first came on the scene, he used to lead with that right uppercut, left hook. I used to think that was so beautiful, and it's one of the aspects of his game that I really miss, really. And he's got a good chin. His conditioning is a bit suspect, but he has got a good chin. And I think when you take in consideration his amateur accomplishments as a young man in Ireland, winning the National Open at a national level in Ireland, that's a big deal, particularly when you're talking about boxing. Irish culture is so heavily around boxing. They turn out some incredible talent for such a small island, and when you look at even the caliber of fighters they have fighting right now, like Carl Frampton, Mike Conlan, he'll be a world champion. Then you got guys back in the days that I used to love, like Irish John Duddy, and all of these guys that are incredible fighters. Ireland's always produced talent. For Conor to have success on an amateur level and be able to do what he did against Floyd, and the fact that he's been putting everyone out with his hands, you've got to respect his hands. My number one is Conor McGregor. Obviously, I got a boatload of honourable mentions, but I tried to condense this down. I might do a more detailed video on this because I really like this subject, actually, and obviously as a fan of both sports, this is kind of special to me. So thank you for this idea, Bradford lad, and this is an incredible thing to consider, really. And I think I'll be doing a more detailed video on this. Anyways, guys, comment below, let me know what you think. Who's your top 5 boxers in mixed martial arts that could transition and do well in the sport of professional boxing? Thank you for watching, guys. As always, I'm Rohan, and this is Mindful Combat.